Hi, everyone, and welcome back to part 3. This is the final part of our What to Do in Emergencies series of webinars. Over the last couple days, we have talked about what to do in the case of a fire, what to do in the case of if you are having trouble in water, or if someone nearby you is having trouble in water and maybe starting to drown. We've talked about tornadoes and a few other things. And we're going to wrap this up today by talking about earthquakes and a couple of other different emergency things that could happen. First, I wanted to welcome back Benjamin. Those of you who were worried about him during our first emergencies episode when he wasn't here, don't worry. He's here now. He's fine. And because he was here yesterday, he now knows what to do if there is a tornado happening around him, or if he's we don't really get a lot of tornadoes here in Oregon, but if he's visiting his friend in Kansas, he knows what to do if the tornado siren goes off. All right, let's see. All right, a bunch of people in here saying hello, and Chris is asking if I'm alone in here. I'm not alone in here. I have Benjamin with me. But Remy, who was co-hosting some of these webinars with me a few weeks ago when we started them, he's a teacher, so he has students that he is working with right now. So I'm doing this one alone, and he will be joining us for the for a little bit tomorrow. Okay, let us get into. That's the right one. All right, here is the workbook, and again, here, let's see, what page are we on here? 30. The book that we're working out of is called Basic First Aid and Emergencies, and you will have gotten a link to this book and to the learning guide that accompanies it, which I will pop over to very quickly right now. There we go. And this is a learning guide that walks you through this course step by step, saying what to read and the steps to do in between the different parts that you're going to read, so that you can take this information, become more familiar with it, get more used to it, and used to thinking with and applying it. I'm not working with you out of this learning guide today, but this course, Basic First Aid and Emergencies, is available on heronbooks.com. It's available for free right now. It's usually, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks. It's available for free right now. There's several other courses available for free, and those that aren't available for free, you can get 30% off by using the promo code that I will show at the end of this webinar. Let us, whoops. All right, let's get into it. We're talking about earthquakes first. In an earthquake, buildings can shake and objects fall down. It can be impossible to walk because the ground is shaking so hard. If you're inside a building when an earthquake begins, the best choice is to get under something strong like a table or desk so you'll be safe from things that fall down. Crouch down and hold onto the leg of the table or desk. This will help you stay under the shelter. If there is no solid furniture available, get into a doorway. Keep away from windows because glass can shatter and be thrown around. Taking shelter in a basement is not a good idea in an earthquake, since part of the house could fall into the basement. If you are outdoors, move away from any buildings, electric power lines, or other things that can fall down. Crouch down and cover your head with your arms. All right, we're gonna unpack this a little bit. We're gonna get into a little bit more about why each thing. Now, we were learning just yesterday about what to do if there's electrical wires down on the ground, how to handle that, how to stay safe from that, and why it's dangerous. So in an earthquake, stuff is moving, stuff is falling, stuff is breaking. If you're near a power line, that's very possible that those lines could break, fall to the ground, and you have exactly the type of emergency situation that we covered just yesterday with power lines, and you want to stay away from those. So let me pull up the Q&A section here. I'm going to catch up on any questions that you guys have, and then I'm going to show you a few other things. All right. Oh, Milo's asking what the word prerequisite means. I think that was, oh yeah, that was over on this on this learning guide here. Prerequisite means something that you have to do before you do something else. So basic math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division would be a prerequisite for algebra. You don't want to study algebra without studying the more basic math first. All right. Okay, and Milo is asking, would it be good to get under a car in an earthquake? You'd want to get in the car, not under the car. Cars, especially any car that's made nowadays, the newer ones, they're pretty strong. Even the small ones that kind of look a little flimsy, they have to be built in such a way that if they roll over, they're not going to get crushed under their own weight. They have, even if the car looks kind of, you can like punch it with your fist and kind of make a dent in the door, there'll be a stronger cage around the very inside of the car to prevent it from being crushed if it rolls over. That will help protect you if stuff is falling down. So you want to get in that car and just kind of ride it out. All right. Good. I'm going to show a few slides here. Let me pop over. Here we go. Oh, just a reminder, emergency numbers. In America, it's 911. In the United Kingdom, it's 999. If you're not in either of those places, or if you're going to travel to somewhere outside of there, look up the emergency number or numbers in the locations that you're going to be traveling to. You want to know them by heart. You want to know exactly how to get emergency services instantly if you need them. So here's a picture of the aftermath of an earthquake. This was up in Alaska, I think. Alaska, parts of Alaska get quite a lot of earthquakes. And you can see what's happened to the road here. The earth has shifted, the earth has moved, and the earth did not care that there was a road on top of it when it moved. It's going to do whatever it does. We're just living on it. And, this was after the earthquake had ended, so people are walking around just kind of like, gee, look at all this damage here. I know that road was fixed within a few days. They came in and, paved it over and got it fixed and got things working again. But it's just an example of how much the earth can move. This part near the bottom of the picture is a good, 10, 15 feet to the left of where it was before. The earth can move a lot in an earthquake. Here's a picture from 1989 after an earthquake in the San Francisco area. And you can see that the house, it kind of shifted, it slid over and started to fall down. It held together. Any houses that are built, any structures that are built in California in the last many years, they've learned a lot about earthquakes and how to build buildings that will survive earthquakes, especially San Francisco, which famously was pretty much destroyed in 1906 or something like that. There was a big earthquake, and then that earthquake triggered a number of fires, and almost the entire city was destroyed. And they rebuilt after that, and they were a lot smarter, and every year we learn a bit more about how to build more safely. So you can see this house, it shifted. You can see a lot of broken windows. There's some glass there and there, but all these other windows, the glass is broken out of most of them. And what it said in the course pack just now was stay away from windows because you don't want broken glass flying around. You can see a bunch of broken glass there. But the buildings did not collapse, and the people inside would have been able to climb out of there when the shaking stopped. Okay. Now, where do earthquakes happen? This is a map of the world, and each red dot represents an earthquake that happened over, I forget what period of time is covered. This might have been looking at earthquakes for a period of 2 years. And most earthquakes you will never know about. Most earthquakes you will never feel. And that is because there's hundreds of earthquakes that happen every day, most of them very small, very minor. And then every once in a while, a big one will happen that you will hear about, like, LA or San Francisco, Japan. And every once in a while, there's a huge one like Japan in 2011 that can be very destructive and cause a lot of damage. But most earthquakes are very small. We don't even notice them. But geologists can track where they're happening, and you can see there's exact places where they're far more likely to happen than others. So if you are living on the west coast of the United States, you are going to need to be prepared for earthquakes. If you're living on the east coast of the United States, it's not as much of a thing over there. If you're going to live in, Chile down here in South America, you're going to want to know about earthquakes and how to be prepared for them. And if you're living over, in Brazil, unless you're right in that red spot there, which I don't know why there's earthquakes there, but most of the rest of Brazil, obviously not an earthquake country. Now, if you were with me when I was with Marty a week or so ago, and we were talking about tectonic plates, these plates that cover the crust of the earth and that move around slowly, this pattern of red lines will look very familiar to you because they follow the boundaries of the plates on the crust of the earth. You can see that here's the North American plate, and there is no plate boundary on the east coast there. The edge of the North American plate is all the way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And let's look in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Yep, there's a whole line of where earthquakes happen. And you've got all kinds of plate boundaries in Southeast Asia and around India and Arabia. And sure enough, there you can almost exactly draw these lines there. So these earthquakes and all this geological shaking of the earth is happening at these plate boundaries. And so that's how we can predict with a good amount of certainty where the earthquakes are going to be, even if we can't say exactly when and how strong they're going to be. I'm going to go back to that real quick. All right, and Isis, you asked the question I was just about to mention. She said, where is the Ring of Fire? So this is called the Ring of Fire, and it starts in South America at the bottom tip of Chile, and it goes up, follows the western coast of the Americas, cuts across between Alaska and Russia, comes down, definitely follows Japan there, all through the Philippines and on down to the bottom of the Pacific, and then kind of bridging over down there. This is where a lot of the volcanic activity in the world and a lot of the earthquakes in the world, not all of them, but a lot, will occur. And they call it the Ring of Fire. There's a chain of volcanoes all around here. And it's got a nice ring to it, Ring of Fire. Let's asking what happened in Japan in 2011. In 2011, Japan, it was March, experienced a really big earthquake, bigger than anything that LA has ever experienced. And Japan is very experienced with earthquakes. They get a lot of them. They get really strong ones. Japan is the best country in the world when it comes to knowledge about and preparation for earthquakes. They build stronger buildings, stronger bridges than any country on the world because they know that they need to be prepared for these things. Okay. Catching up on the comments here. All right. Oh, if an earthquake suddenly happened at Delphian, what would you do? We are going to talk about exactly what to do if and when an earthquake happens where you are. All right, let's see. So, as we talked about in the course pack just now, and this is just a graphic that takes it into less words. Drop, cover, hold on. So when you're on fire, you stop, drop, and roll. In an earthquake, you drop, you get under cover, and you hold on to that cover. So, popping back to our course pack here, actions. If you're indoors, stay away from windows. Again, we talked about those windows could break and that glass could go flying. Get under a solid piece of furniture, or if no furniture is available, into a doorway. If I have a choice between a doorway and a nice strong desk, 100% I'm getting under that desk, not getting into the doorway. If there's nothing else around, I am in an empty room in a house that is under renovation and there's no furniture available, then I will get into a doorway. Otherwise, I'm gonna want to get under a nice strong desk. Hang on so you don't get thrown from cover. So you don't want to slip out from underneath that table, or what could very much happen, things are shaking, it's moving, and that table might be cutting here. Let me grab this. Here we go. All right. If it's shaking, it might kind of like move along as it shakes, because the earth is not only shaking and vibrating left and right or frontwards and backwards, it might also physically be moving. Parts of the earth's crust will be in a different spot at the end of an earthquake than it was at the beginning. You could start the earthquake right here, and the same point would be over here 2 minutes later. So it might be moving along, and if Benjamin here, hey Benjamin, if Benjamin gets under this, let's say this is a table here, gets under this table when the shaking starts, let's fit him in here. There you go, Benjamin. All right, he's nice and safe in there. Anything falling down, all right, that's not gonna hit him. You don't want this thing to go wandering off and leave him there, so he's gonna hold on to it. Good job. Even if a part of his body is sticking out from under it, his head is under the strongest part of it. It's your head and your neck that you want to protect the most. So he's holding on so that if it moves, he moves with it and he stays safe. Okay. Are there any earthquakes at Angle Fire in New Mexico? Amber, I don't know the answer to that question. Let us pull up this map again really quick. Let's try to find New Mexico on here. New Mexico is going to be about there. Hard to tell from this map. It's kind of blurry, but you can Google, you can look up a map of where earthquakes occur. There's some really great websites out there that show exactly where the earthquakes happen or have happened and how strong they were and when they were and stuff like that. AG asks, what about under their piano? I am probably going to avoid a piano during an earthquake. They are big and heavy, which can be good to protect you if stuff is falling from the top. Now, when I first think of a piano, I think of an upright piano, and I would be worried about that piano tipping over. They're very heavy. If the center of gravity isn't low enough and it starts to tip over, that would be bad to be under that. If it's a grand piano, if it's like a longer, flatter one that's far less likely to tip over, then yeah, get under that. You want to have it protect you from things that are falling from up there. If things fall from the ceiling, tiles or stuff like that falling from the ceiling, or a bookshelf falling over. I have a few pictures that will demonstrate kind of what's going to fall over, what to expect in kind of a normal room when an earthquake happens. Okay. Oh, Lorna's saying, poor Benjamin, he's in a cage. A cage that will protect him from things falling from above. Yes. Chris asked, could an earthquake interfere with the Earth's orbit? No, we're safe from it. Like, the Earth having an earthquake and it shifts our orbit and then we fall into the sun. Nope, that's not something that we need to worry about. How heavy the Earth is, how massive the Earth is, doesn't change at all. It's just, you're not getting up from the chair and leaving. You're just shifting in the chair, same amount of weight. All right. So I have a couple of pictures here in the drop cover. Hold on, good. This is a picture from Los Angeles after a medium earthquake in Los Angeles. And you can see there's a bunch of stuff all over the floor. This guy, unfortunately, has quite a mess that he's going to have to clean up. But he obviously stayed safe during the earthquake. He must have been somewhere safe, gotten under something like a table or a big heavy chair or something like that, so that he didn't get hurt during the earthquake. And you can see everything just kind of fell over. Maybe there was, maybe that's a bookcase that fell on its side or something like that. Looks like he put some, either those things stayed attached to the wall or he put them back up afterwards. But you can, everything just kind of fell onto the floor. It's a bit messy. Here is exactly what can happen in an earthquake. You can see this bookshelf is more like a book table. Now, this bookshelf was standing along that wall right there, and it was not attached to the wall. And as soon as things started shaking, it fell over. Now, if you were standing right there, you would have been hit by that bookcase and you would have gotten hurt. That's not good. When you are putting up a bookcase, something heavy that's against a wall, most places will, you know, I bought a bookcase from IKEA, and it came with little metal bits that I could screw onto the top and sides of the bookcase and then screw those into the wall. So if I go up to my bookcase and I try to pull it over, it does not fall down on me. It's attached to the wall. So the books are going to come falling off of that bookcase if there was an earthquake. But the bookcase itself is going to stay attached to the wall, which is, I'd rather have some books hit me than a bookshelf. Also, I'm not going to be standing next to that bookshelf. I'm going to run to my kitchen table, get under it, and hold on. Here is a picture of a guy, and he, you know, this is a simulation. There wasn't an actual earthquake. They were doing this to demonstrate what to do in an earthquake. And he got his kid, and he got under that. Look at that nice, strong kitchen table there, or kitchen table. It's made of nice, strong wood. And with one hand, he's holding onto his kid, and with the other hand, he's holding onto the table, so the table doesn't walk off and leave them there, just sitting in their living room. And you can see books are falling, but books have fallen and they've landed on the table. This shows a bookcase there that fell over, and it fell over and it hit the table instead of hitting them, and the books fell onto the table, and some books down there, but they're safe. And then you're going to want to sit there, and you're just going to drop cover and hold on and wait for that shaking to stop. Yes. All right, let me catch up on, so Evelyn's asking, in a cupboard, it depends on the cupboard. Again, what you're looking for is to protect yourself from things falling down. If the cupboard had, like, let's say the cupboard is also a pantry, and you've got a lot of glass jars of, you know, pickles and all kinds of stuff in there. I don't want to be in there during an earthquake, because that stuff is going to come crashing to the ground and it's going to break. Okay. Oh, someone mentioned, I should have mentioned this 2 lessons ago. Mackenzie and Denali just reminded me about this great book series called I Survived. My kids love those books. I love those books. And it takes, it shows a kid surviving a natural disaster or other disasters of some kind. And there's a great one about the San Francisco earthquake from the early 1900s. And it's from the viewpoint of a kid in these emergency scenarios and how to survive them. And they're really, really great. There's a lot of good stuff that you can learn from those. Milo's asking, could I go under my bunk bed, but it's not nailed to the wall? Yeah, good. Yes, get to that. So a bunk bed is awesome. It's going to be nice and strong. It needs to be able to survive some kid like jumping on the top bunk. So it needs to be super strong. Get onto that bottom bunk. Anything falling from the ceiling or falling over from the wall or something like that, that's a nice shield there. Great, Milo. The kid looks confused, Chris says. Yeah, I don't blame that kid. Amber's asking, can you hide under a big tent during an earthquake? Inside, no, bad idea. Tents are not super strong. Outside, actually, outside is where you want to be when an earthquake starts, away from tall things that'll fall down. We'll talk about that in a second. When are you going to take Benjamin out of the cage? Okay, all right. By popular demand, I have released Benjamin from the safety of his stool cage. Okay, good. Let me pop back over really quick into here. So if you're indoors, stay away from windows. Drop cover, hold on, and wait for it to end. If you're outdoors, good. One thing it doesn't say right there, but I really want to mention, if you're indoors, do not try to go outdoors. Let's say you happen to be standing immediately in your front door when an earthquake starts, and you can either run inside or run outside. Run outside. But if you are 10 feet from the front door and bam, earthquake starts, I am not going outside. I am finding the closest thing that I can get under. And maybe, hopefully, there's a bench in that front hall or like a nice big chair or a table. Get under that. Do not try to run outside when there's an earthquake happening. Stuff is going to be falling. Here, let me go back real quick. Let's go back to the slideshow. There's the confused kid. Sorry, kid. So here's this house. Something to notice about this house. Look at all this stuff lying on the ground. There's all piles of stuff falls away from the side of the house and it falls down here. If you were trying to run out of that house, you're going to get hit by that stuff. Don't do that. Stay where you are. Drop, cover, hold on and wait, and then carefully exit the building once the shaking has stopped. Okay, so if you're outdoors, get as far away as you can from buildings, power lines, or other things that fall on you. Crouch down and cover your head. Outdoors are where you want to be when it starts. Earthquakes don't hurt people. Things falling in earthquakes hurt people. So, if I'm out in the parking lot, I'm going to see, well, that building's about 3 stories high. I'm just going to walk far enough, not run, far enough away so that even if there's stuff falling off the side of the building, bricks or broken glass falling down, none of it's going to hit me. And then I'm going to just kind of crouch down and, nothing above me, but cover my head just to be safe. And then I'm going to just ride it out. The ground can be shaking so much that it can knock you off your feet. So that's why it's crouched down. Don't just stand there. Definitely don't try to run because it's gonna throw your balance off. If you're outdoors in a car, pull over and stop driving, but don't park on or under a bridge or an overpass, as these can collapse, and they sometimes do in an earthquake. They're building them better and better now, but safer to just find an open stretch of road. You're not on a bridge or nothing like that, and just park and just stay in the car until the earthquake stops. Car is a great place to ride it out, and there'll be some shaking and you'll be okay in there. Okay, gonna catch up on some questions here. All right, Milo's asking about what about the aftershock? After the first earthquake happens, there are always going to be things called aftershocks. This is a second earthquake that comes after the first earthquake. They can happen minutes after the first earthquake. Sometimes there can be many aftershocks sometimes, many. And sometimes they can go for days or weeks afterwards. So you drop, you cover, you hold on. As soon as that shaking stops, then you get up and you safely exit the building that you're in. And you're going to want to stay out there until an adult knows that it's safe to go back inside, or emergency services come along and say, like, okay, it's safe to go in, or please go over here, because you don't know when the next earthquake is going to happen, when the next aftershock is going to occur. You just have to assume there's going to be another. Usually aftershocks are not as strong as the first one, but sometimes they are, or sometimes they're strong enough that they can cause more problems. The building is already weakened. You don't want to go back inside. Andrew asks, how long is an earthquake? It depends on the earthquake. A very weak earthquake, the couple of earthquakes that I have experienced when I lived in Los Angeles, they lasted 20 seconds, something like that. They were weaker ones, and it was enough to just make the room kind of shake a little bit. It was a lot louder than I expected. It's like when your house creaks, you know, sometimes your house will just kind of settle and you hear the building just creak a little bit. It was like that, but every part of the building creaked at once for 20 seconds. Definitely sounded weird. And a couple things fell off of shelves, but it was okay. It was a very weak one. Lasted about 20 seconds. The more powerful an earthquake is, the longer it is probably going to go. The big earthquake that I talked about in Japan in 2011 was 5 minutes. 5 minutes of shaking, strong shaking. So they can be super strong, they can be kind of weak, or anywhere in between. Under a bed, Noah, yeah, under a bed is a good spot to go, especially because there's that nice mattress on top of it, as well as the wood frame. You know, some beds have a lot of space underneath. My bed does not have a lot of space underneath. I can't crawl under it. But I can get, I have a little nightstand in my room, but it's not super strong. I'm not going to get under that. I'm going to grab the mattress. I'm going to pull the mattress off the bed and onto me so that if anything falls, that mattress will protect me from it. Okay. Lauren is asking, what about a loft bed? I'm not going to want to be on the top of the loft bed if you can be under something strong to protect you from things that are falling. Okay. Wow, I missed a lot of comments here. All right, I have to not take up most of these. Evelyn's asking, what if you fall into a crack? Extremely unlikely. Let me go back to, there we go. Sometimes, I remember watching Land Before Time when I was a kid, and you see the earth just split apart with these huge gaps down that fall hundreds of feet and dinosaurs falling into them. That's not how earthquakes go. It's very, very rare for anything to happen where there's cracks opening up in the earth. If you do see stuff starting to open up in the earth, try to move away from that spot to a spot where, you know, there's not things opening and closing. But that part of it is extremely unlikely for you to encounter. AG's asking, is indoors more dangerous or outdoors more dangerous when an earthquake happens? Indoors are more dangerous because, again, it's not an earthquake that hurts people. It's stuff falling in an earthquake that hurts people. And indoors, there's a lot of our stuff because we put it there. So being outside is better. But again, you don't want to try to move from inside to outside when an earthquake happens. Okay, I am going to move on here. Oh, someone mentioned a light fixture. I'm up above me, there's some fluorescent lights in this room. I am not going to want to be standing under those fluorescent lights in an earthquake because it's very possible that they will shatter or break or fall out and fall down. I would get under this table right here and wait for the shaking to stop. Okay. One last thing I want to talk about earthquakes. It's not covered in the course pack, but anytime I talk about earthquakes with people, especially if it's in a group, someone is always going to mention to me, what about the triangle of life? I wanted to talk about this and why it's a terrible idea. So there is this idea that started floating around several years ago that it's better to not get under a table, but get next to a table. Not get under the heavy thing that's going to protect you from stuff falling, but to get next to it so that as stuff falls over, you can see, like, here's a table, right? And here is something that fell over, boom, and it hit the edge of the table, but this girl is safe. There's a triangle between the floor, that table leg, and the thing that fell over, and it made this triangle, right? Or here's under a table. What if something falls onto the table and breaks the middle of the table? you've got now a triangle of the top of the table, the leg of the table, and the ground, and you're safe under there. Listen, if I'm under a table, I'm going to be close to the leg anyway. But okay, so these girls are safe in there. Here's this falling debris that fell and broke the middle of the table. What if that debris fell over here and it just hits her because she's not under the table? This is, this one frustrates me. That there are people out there who are not experts in disaster preparedness or safety that are recommending that people not do the safest thing. So I don't call it the triangle of life. I call it the triangle of getting hit by a bunch of heavy stuff as it falls on you while there's a perfectly good table right next to you. This girl needs to get under this table. If the table does break from something heavy falling on it, that's unfortunate. But that thing, whatever fell and hit you, and that hit the table, that broke the table, it's worse if it hits you. So yes, you're safer right next to that table leg there. And that's what you're going to be holding on to anyway. But man, if I find you sitting next to a table instead of under it, then we're going to do this entire webinar again. Okay, I'm glad that I've talked about that. Good. If this guy was next to that table with his kid instead of under it, and that bookshelf fell, he gets hit by the books, he gets hit by the bookshelf. There we go. Okie doke. Oh, someone's asking me about the background here. I'll show you the real background in about 7 minutes at the end of this class. All right, let's pop back into the course pack. All right, we have talked about earthquakes quite a bit here. Let's move on to the last couple of things. Situation: a person is caught in a sudden flood. What to do if you're in a flood? Floods can happen after strong rainstorms, and the rushing water can be dangerous. The best thing to do in a flood is to get into a higher position. You can climb a tree, go up a hill, or go onto the higher floors of a building. Avoid walking through fast-moving water because it can knock you down. Even if it's just like less than a foot of water, if it's like 6 to 12 inches of water moving across a roadway, you're like, oh, I can make it. No, don't do that. Water moving is way more powerful than we anticipate. And it can, just 6 feet of fast moving water can sweep you off of your feet, and then you're in a tight spot. All right, if you're caught in a flood while in a car, do not try to drive through it. This is because rushing flood water can carry away a car. If you can, get out of the car and get to a higher position, trying not to walk through moving water. So get to higher ground without walking through moving water. And if it's in a car, if you're in a car and the car can't go any further, leave the car and get to higher ground. All right. And the last thing is what to do in a thunderstorm. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to go back to the Q&A section and catch up with the last comments and questions before we wrap up. Lightning is a very powerful hot burst of electrical energy. When this electricity travels through the air, it causes air particles to vibrate and collide, making thunder. Even if you can't see lightning, thunder lets you know it's happening. Since lightning is so hot, it is dangerous to be near it when it strikes. Lightning is usually drawn to whatever is sticking up highest in the area. This could be a tall tree, a metal tower, or a person standing in a flat field. That is why you may have heard that you should not stand under a tree in a thunderstorm. Lightning is so powerful that if it were to strike the tree, you could be hurt. If you are outdoors when a thunderstorm starts, there are some things you can do to keep yourself safe. You can get into a car or a building. If you are not close to cars and buildings, get away from high points, such as the top of a hill or a tree standing alone, and move to a low point. In the woods, go into an area with lots of low trees and away from tall ones. Crouch down and make yourself as small as possible. Never lie on the ground, even if you are in an open space, as that can make you a bigger target for lightning. Okay, so to recap, if you can get to a building, go indoors. If you're in a car, stay there. If you're outdoors, move to the lowest point you can find. and crouch down and make yourself as small as possible, but don't lie down. Okay. I am going to catch up on your questions and comments here. All right, Lorna's asking if I could take over the end of the very last webinar and tell you more about emergencies. No, I'm not going to do that. We have other fun surprises planned for the grand finale tomorrow afternoon. But I will tell you where you can go to learn more about how to prepare for emergencies and stuff like that. I'll tell you that in just a moment here. All right, someone's saying someone should come and shake the camera and pretend that we're in an earthquake right now. Oh, Evelyn's asking, what do I teach? What do I do at Delphian? My first job here is I work in admissions. I talk to families that are looking at Delphian as a possible school and tell them more about the school, and we see if that's a good fit for their family. I also teach a few other things. I teach writing sometimes, archery, and current events, talking about what's happening in the world during all this and the quarantine and coronavirus and all that. I was happy to agree to help put on these webinars. Okay. So many amazing questions. I'm so sorry that I cannot get to all of these. Chris asked, can you get under a door frame in an earthquake? Chris, as we covered before, if you can get under a table or a chair, something heavy that will protect you from stuff falling, do that first. If you don't have something good like that to get under, then a doorway is your next best choice. Okay, AG is asking, can lightning kill someone directly? Unfortunately, yes, and that is why you don't want to put yourself in a position where you could be struck by lightning. So don't stand under that tall tree. Don't stand up alone in a field. Get inside if you can. Get into a car that will protect you from that lightning. All right. I think Adia is talking about floods here. Since the car is stuck in the water, can't you go through the top part of the car and stand or kneel on top of the car? In a specific situation, I suppose that would be good. If you're in a car and the car's kind of being carried by the flood water, I'm going to try to stay in that car as long as possible so that people can get to me. If you're outside, you can get swept away. I'm going to try to stay in there, but if the car is full of water and there's no air to breathe, then you're going to want to get out and try to climb up on top of something, on top of the car, climb a tree. If there's a hill nearby, you can get to land and climb up, then that is the way to go. All right. And yes, several people are pointing out, accurately so in the comment section here, that you can get struck by lightning and survive. It has happened. It's not great for you. It is not good for your health. I don't recommend getting struck by lightning. In fact, I recommend not getting struck by lightning. But plenty of people have been hit and survived. It's not great. Okay, I have to end off here so that we can get ready for the next webinars. Lorna was asking, for more information on emergency preparedness. You can get this course. Oh, I didn't put a slide of it in here. You can get this course that we're doing right now, Basic First Aid in Emergencies, and go through this information again. You can also, every county in the United States has a community emergency response team. This is a team of volunteers that get together and learn about, prepare for, and are ready for emergencies that happen. It's like an 8-week training course where you'll learn a whole lot more than what we just covered today. Very specific stuff too. I've done this training a few years ago. I plan on doing it again next year. Really great stuff. You learn a lot. And yeah, just the idea is know what's going to happen, what could happen, and be prepared for it. That way, if it doesn't happen, it's no problem. And if it does happen, then you're prepared. You're more ready. And instead of needing help yourself, you can provide help to others in those emergency situations. All right, I am going to end off the webinar for now. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes in the Q&A section to catch up on, I had to miss so many of your questions and amazing comments. So I'm going to try to catch up on those. And starting in about half an hour, Adam is coming in and he's going to be teaching, he's going to be talking about music, just 2 slots of music in a row. It's going to be pretty great. I'm definitely going to be watching that. All right. Oh, and I did promise that I would take down the background at the very end here. This is what it normally looks like in the back. It's a green screen. And yeah, computer sees the green and it puts another image back there instead of the green. So it could be that stormy sky right there, or that stormy sky right there, or this rocket. So we like to have a lot of fun with that. All right. Bye, everyone.